Remember how?
Whatever his tastes, sometimes it doesn't work out. Great, I mean, I look forward to getting to you. People ignore him. He's coming. No. Brilliant. Very good, Robert. I trust you're all awake. So, good morning. I hope you all had a good sleep last night and are ready to sing. Please, our opening hymn, number 1008 in the Teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Seated, and welcome to everyone. I am Sharon Whitehill, and I'm pleased to be the worship associate for our service this morning at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County. As you've just heard, we begin our service each week with music for everyone and a conch shell when Reverend Bob graces us. And this is for all of you, whether you're watching on YouTube or here in person. You watching on YouTube will know, and the rest of you should know, that the broadcast is live and ongoing, but it will also be available later on the UUFCC YouTube channel. This is now a good time to put your phones in worship mode, and also to be reminded that if the service goes a bit over time and you need to leave, you're certainly welcome to do so. Meanwhile, thanks to all whose time and effort make our services possible. That would be our tech people, building and grounds volunteers, Ryan and Janet and the choir, office administrators, greeters, decorators, art on the wall folks, and kitchen workers. A special thanks to all of you who have sent in your pledges, because this is what keeps us operational. As the Big Bopper said, we know what you like. In this congregation, we open our hearts to all kinds of people. If you're a seeker, we offer you spiritual sanctuary. If you are hurting, we reach out to you and acknowledge your pain. If you're a minority or one of the forgotten, we welcome you here with respect. Wherever you come from, however often you visit, how long you remain with us, we are glad for your presence today. If you'd like to learn more about us, please email the office at uufcc.org or visit our website at that same address, uufcc.org. Let us now have the prelude, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. I see, probably noticed our new arrangement this morning. It's a real gift to those of us who have trouble with the stairs, and it's more and more of us, I think. It's time now for the chalice lighting, which is a ritual in our tradition. And I invite those of you watching at home to be ready to kindle your own chalices, as today Corey has agreed to come up. And where is Corey? Hmm? Oh, it's already lit. Well, all right. Thank you, Corey. Yes, the invisible man. All right. Today's words are from Mark Causey on the worship web. We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that all on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us featherless birds, we are all made of the same star stuff. We all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering, and the same aspirations of happiness and love and flourishing. Being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as best we may. We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced. We are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent, and it is good. Please join me now in reciting our affirmation, which is printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Reverend Bob would like now to give the reading in your dark green hymnals. What color do we say they are? Gray hymnals. Thank you. Number 646.
Whoops. We'll get those in a minute. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I am Reverend Bob, Minister Emeritus, Tarpon Springs, and it's good to be back. Our reading is in the Gray Hymn Book. It is 646. This is a responsive reading, so we do this together. And the custom is I do the first few words, we join together for the italics. Reading 646. We clasp the hands of those that go before us, and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms, and the larger circle of lovers. Whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all creatures, passing in and out of life, who move also in a dance, to a music so subtle and vast that no ear hears it, except in fragments. Blessed be. Words from Wendell Berry. I think most of you, many of you know Wendell Berry, certainly one of the great natural philosophers of the 20th century and into this century, Wendell Berry.
Some of us heard Wendell Berry speak at UUA some years back. Please rise in body or spirit now for hymn number 203 in the Gray hymnal, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky.
Creatures of the earth and sky, all
Today's opening words are from Yuval Noah Harari. Some of you may know this author who wrote, he wrote this book in Hebrew, and it's called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. It's quite a book. But his words today are from an earlier book of his called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And they are dedicated to his husband. In a world in which everything is interconnected, the supreme moral imperative becomes the imperative to know. The greatest crimes in modern history resulted not just from hatred and greed, but even more so from ignorance and indifference. Ignorance and indifference. Charming English ladies financed the Atlantic slave trade by buying shares and bonds in the London Stock Exchange without ever setting foot in either Africa or the Caribbean. They then sweetened their 4 o'clock tea with snow-white sugar cubes produced in hellish plantations about which they knew nothing. Our book of life offers you the opportunity to share your joys and sorrows and life milestones with the rest of us by writing them in this red book or by emailing them to bookoflife@uufcc.org by the Saturday before the service. After I read the entries here, I will invite you to drop a stone in the water to commemorate those sorrows and joys you carry with you today. I will drop the last stone. Please keep your words brief and remember that they are being publicly broadcast on YouTube. In the book today, let's see, okay. What's the date today? Somebody wrote 5/19. That was last week, I see. Would you like me to read it?
Read the one that says please. Read the one that I had you read out to me.
Well, please, this is for Tom. And we want you all to give him your full appreciation for the million, and that's an accurate number, the million ways he helps us in the fellowship here. In particular for the door install that he and Doug accomplished. So let's have it. And this one is from our Debbie C., who we're really happy to see here today. I want to shout out a big thank you, she says, to everyone for your love and support during this difficult time. And now, would you please come forward if you wish to drop a stone and offer a milestone.
Today is my grandson's 22nd birthday, Mike Moran.
I just want to say a big thank you.
I place a stone for Dina D., the nurse practitioner in our office in Bradenton. Today is the memorial service this evening at sunset at Holmes Beach for her husband Fritz, who passed away just 3 short weeks after being diagnosed with cancer.
Tomorrow is Memorial Day, used to be called Decoration Day because that was the day to decorate the graves. My husband was on an aircraft carrier in the Gulf of Tonkin when he was informed by the Navy chaplain that he had a baby boy. And that baby boy died in October unexpectedly, our Michael. My husband's here today. I'm so grateful he's here. He and I have the most incredible family. Family support means everything in times of joy and in times of sorrow. This is for families.
When we say our invocation, we speak of service as our law. And we have an opportunity next week to act in a way, in a loving manner, for people who are sort of jeopardized by the current situation we have in our country. So please see me after the service, and we will discuss it further. I hope we can get your help too.
I will drop this last stone for any who may be holding in their hearts silently other milestones that are too tender to speak today. Know that our thoughts and love are with you. It's time for me to sit down. I'm very glad now to introduce Reverend Bob with Charlotte's Web.
I have the feeling that you've already heard the main message for today's Sunday service. And you've heard it during announcements, the placing of stones in that bowl of water, various comments that we've heard, the invitation to a meeting after today's service. You've already got the message. So what do? Well, I offer a few footnotes maybe, and some of them may be worth remembering, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. The second Sunday of June is recognized nowadays as being Children's Sunday. I don't know how many of you have heard about Children's Sunday, but it's starting to once again be rediscovered and reclaimed in several places, including being reclaimed by the United States government. Children's Sunday, second Sunday in June. The first children's events have been celebrated in many countries, in Japan, India, France, Germany, throughout the world. There are many special events for boys and girls. But in the United States, the tradition begins in 1858 in a Universalist congregation just outside of Boston in Chelsea. And they want to have a day, as the minister explains, of, by, and for children. Special day to recognize children. And that's how Children's Sunday is invented. And what's interesting is that even though it starts as a Universalist event, it very quickly becomes accepted in other religious groups. Some of those groups continue the celebration, and what's very interesting is they even acknowledge the Universalists. So if you go to a Baptist church, you may actually hear references to the Universalists, some mysterious people up north who way back when developed this holiday. It actually predates Mother's Day and Father's Day in the United States. Children's Sunday. Now, Universalists and Unitarians for a long, long time have been very interested in children's literature and children's activities, especially among very young children. So we could talk about Beatrix Potter in England, an English Unitarian. And of course, what did Beatrix Potter write? No, not Harry Potter stories. Peter Rabbit. This was long before Harry Potter. For some reason, though, the English are famous for children's stories, and they're very proud of that fact. The kindergarten movement in the United States really starts with the Peabody sisters. This is before the American Civil War, heavily influenced by German refugees, some of them Unitarians, or they quickly become involved with the Unitarians. And they're coming into the United States after the Revolution of 1848 has failed, or revolutions in Europe. So many of these refugees come in, they bring all these radical ideas in, and the idea of kindergarten is one of the radical ideas that is very attractive for many Unitarians and Universalists. But there are three books in particular that are classics in children's literature. The first is, I'm sure it's familiar to every one of you, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Dickens is in and out of different religious movements, but he becomes very Unitarian at one point in his life, and that's when he writes A Christmas Carol, which of course is the classic book about Christmas that only mentions Jesus maybe twice in passing. Everything else happens in that book. But Christianity is really not at the center of it. And there's no particular savior or saint of any great consequence who's mentioned. I think Jesus is mentioned in passing twice. But it's really a very humanistic book, although obviously it has ghosts and a somewhat mystical side to it. It's the great Unitarian classic that everybody knows at Christmas time. And they don't really understand why and how this book was developed, A Christmas Carol. The second Unitarian classic in children's literature is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, who was actually born and raised in Concord, Massachusetts during the days of Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry Thoreau, other great transcendental figures. And as a child, she actually knows many of these people. So she sees the transcendental movement, she sees what's happening in Concord, in Unitarian churches, and she sees it as a child. And that's a lot of what is happening when you go back and read and rediscover Little Women and subsequent books by Louisa May Alcott, is a kind of Unitarian child's view of the world. Much of the book, of course, takes place during the Civil War and explains why the father figure is gone. He's a chaplain with the Union Army, is where father is gone. So the women are with themselves and on their own for a good part of the book, and trying to do charitable work and other things in the community. The third classic for Unitarian Universalists in children's literature is the book that I'll discuss today at some length. And that book is Charlotte's Web. Okay. How many of you have read Charlotte's Web? Okay. Well, a few hands didn't go up, so for those of you who don't know the story, I'll try to summarize it as best I can. It's written by a man who we remember as E.B. White, a Unitarian author. White was one of the editors, one of the contributors to the New Yorker magazine for much of the 20th century, and actually wrote the Stuart Little books also, which are other classics, which maybe we'll talk about on some other occasion. Charlotte's Web was published in 1952, and of course there have been movie versions, endless books written about how Charlotte's Web was constructed. I actually have a few of them that I've consulted. There's even a video game that involves Charlotte's Web. It is a much beloved story, and to simplify it just a bit, it's about a pig, that's right, a pig named Wilbur, and Wilbur is the runt of the litter, but he is saved by a girl named Fern, and he goes to live in Mr. Zuckerman's barn. And pigs eat a lot, and they're encouraged to eat a lot, and he grows larger and larger and larger. And there's some talk that maybe it's time to send Wilbur to the meat market. We know what that means. But he's saved a second time. And this time, his savior is a spider. That's right, a spider named Charlotte. And the way she saves Wilbur is very interesting. She weaves a magical web. There's some magic. You really have to use some imagination in this book. And into the web, which is very prominent in the barn, the first web is the message, "Some pig." Yeah, this pig is really something. And that's it. That's the message. But we don't see many messages in spider webs, so this attracts a lot of attention. And then there are subsequent messages. One of them reads, "Resilient." By the way, that's found in an old soapbox the Rat Templeton brings in. They don't really know what the word resilient means, but they kind of figure it out, the animals, and then they decide that the humans will be attracted by the word resilient. And there are other messages, too, that appear in the web. Needless to say, this attracts a lot of attention from the humans. They're not used to seeing this kind of thing. They decide they have a very special pig indeed, and they're not really sure why or how, but somebody's writing messages in the spider web, and they never see Charlotte. Most of the humans never see Charlotte. But they know that something's going on here, and they get excited about it. Charlotte becomes sort of a local tourist attraction. Eventually, not Charlotte, I'm sorry, Wilbur becomes the tourist attraction. Charlotte just kind of tags along. They go to the county fair. A special award is given to Wilbur the pig and Wilbur's owner, Mr. Zuckerman. And of course, after that, Wilbur is saved because nobody wants to make pork chops out of a special pig, right? I mean, suddenly this pig has a name and a personality and special characteristics, so that's worthy of award and praise and protection, which is what really matters. And there's a bit of a bittersweet ending. Spiders, most spiders only live a few months, maybe a year at the most. Charlotte knows that she is about to die, but she has some eggs. She knows that there will be children to follow her, many, many, many children. And Wilbur's asked to protect the children. Charlotte dies. Wilbur makes good on his promise, and we have the sense that there will be future generations and that the legacy will continue. And that, in a few words, very few words, is the story of Charlotte's Web. Well, what's the message in all of this, and why is it so important for Unitarian Universalists? Well, the first message may be the simplest of the three. I'm going to offer three suggestions. In this life, you need all the friends you can get. And you need some advocates, people who will stand up for you at the right moment in the right place. And they may keep you from being sent to the meat market, or maybe something else might happen. Charlotte's an advocate. All right. Now, she's not really sure why or how she got to this place. And this, I think, is very significant for Unitarian Universalists especially. You know, she's not particularly religious. She doesn't have any great manifesto to share, claims that, you know, the Creator in the sky has instructed her to do such and such. She just has the awareness that this is the right thing to do, to defend Wilbur, to become an advocate. And that's what she does. And she says at one point in the book, you know, being a spider, you know, we're not going to be around that long. And it's really a messy life. You know, much of the time we're just trying to trap insects and eat insects, you know, and that's what we do. And that's kind of messy, and that's the term she used. But I'd like to raise my life up, and she says, just a trifle. I'd like to raise myself up just a trifle. Okay. She becomes an advocate for Wilbur. Now, when I was in Massachusetts, I knew a very interesting couple. They did not live together, but they were related by birth. One was actually the aunt, and the other was a nephew. And I'm going to guess that aunt was probably in her 90s, nephew maybe 70s when I knew them. But to make a long story short, the aunt was in the hospital for an extended period of time, and the nephew moved in. And night after night actually was in her hospital room. He slept in one of the chairs provided. The staff actually offered meals, and he accepted. But his presence made a difference, and this is often true when somebody's in the hospital. And I think it was true in that case. Because the aunt really didn't speak up and really wasn't capable of saying a whole lot in her defense. But nephew was. And it makes a difference, especially when somebody's in an institution like a hospital, nursing home, maybe some of the schools, certainly prisons, other places. If staff knows that somebody is there, okay, somebody's concerned about this person, or maybe even this animal, it's been proven again and again that the treatment improves. All right, somebody is there as an advocate. They don't necessarily have to do a lot, but just that presence. But if you want to write some pig or some aunt, I suppose, on the wall, well, I guess you could do that if you want to try it. You need an advocate. Second point. What is my second point? Life is short. You already know that. I don't have to tell you that. You have to figure out what it is that you want to do with the remaining years or months, as the case might be. What are you going to do with your life? Now, change is inevitable. In the background for much of the story takes place during the spring, summer, early fall. In the background of much of the story, the crickets are constantly singing this song. And what the crickets are singing, well, you can read it at length, but change is happening. The world is happening. You're changing. Change, change, change. Sounds like the book of Ecclesiastes, right? Okay. Maybe we should have a guitar as background. Everybody in the barn, all the different animals, hear the crickets singing. And they don't really know what to do, or maybe just they choose not to do anything in particular. But Charlotte hears the song, and she knows what the crickets are saying, and she feels challenged. Life is short, change is happening. What am I going to do with myself? And again, she realizes she's had a kind of messy, incomplete life, not always sure what the purpose of it is. But maybe she'll find that purpose. That's a lot of what the book is about. Third message to take away today, well, what's important for you? What was important for Charlotte? What was important for Wilbur, Templeton the rat, or the sheep, or any of the other creatures, Fern, the girl? What's important for you? At some point, well, you need to ask that question. Maybe you'll have an answer. Now, I have a wonderful quote from E.B. White. He said in one of his essays, and I'm going to read this, I hope I get it right. It's a great Unitarian quote. I awake each day with a desire to savor the world and a desire to save the world. Savor the world and save the world. And then he says, this makes it very hard to plan the day. All right, what are we going to do? Are we just going to sit back and enjoy warm summer days? Not too hot, please. We're in Florida. Have a good meal. Templeton the rat likes a good meal. All the animals want a good meal. Maybe they just like conversation. Maybe they like the crickets to sing. We're just going to savor this experience. And the book is rich with this imagery of nature, of being in the outdoors or being with other creatures. And just to be in the present moment. Is that what we want? E.B. White says, of course that's what we want. That's what we want. But then he says, we want something more than that also. Because we realize that there are moments when things go wrong. And we have to save the world. All right, now that's very Unitarian Universalists. we feel we have a mission or a purpose. That's part of much of the Unitarian Universalist literature. 1800s, present day, 21st century. We want to savor the world and we want to save the world. And we need to do a bit of both. And that's what Charlotte does in her own way. Now, I'm going to read a poem to you. This is probably the only poem that I ever had to memorize. So this was in Martha Robinson's 8th grade class. She was one of the best teachers I ever had when I was a child. And she said we couldn't come into the classroom until each one of us had memorized this poem. And some of you will recognize it because it's called Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire. Some of you may have memorized this. You can read along with me. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. No, he thinks that that's what's probably going to destroy the world. But if the world had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to know that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Fire or ice, what destroys us? Well, according to one tale, back in about 1919, Frost was very interested in science, so was E.B. White. They're very similar. Frost went to an astronomer at Harvard at a social gathering and said, I have a question. How will the world end? What brings all of this to conclusion? And the astronomer said, extreme heat or extreme cold. One possibility is the sun explodes, the earth is incinerated, and that's the end of everything that we know. Extreme heat. The other possibility, extreme cold, perhaps our planet is kicked out of orbit for some reason, and we just go wandering further and further and further into space, and we all freeze to death. And that, said the astronomer, well, those are the two possibilities. And Frost went home and he thought about it, and then he wrote Fire and Ice. And of course, there's a subtext, and a lot of things going on in this poem. The resemblance to Dante's Inferno has been noted. He sort of follows the same rhythmic scheme that Dante follows in his envisioning of hell. What is hell going to look like? And there are allusions to that hidden away in the poem. Frost says, I know something about desire, gluttony, and greed, those great sins. Maybe we're just going to destroy ourselves as we consume more and more and more and more without asking why, or is this really necessary, or what are the consequences? And that's what happens with many of the creatures in Charlotte's Web. They just eat. Templeton eats a lot. One of the sheep says, oh, why do you eat so much? And he says, oh, because that's what rats do. We just eat. We always want more and more and more. That's desire, And Frost says, this is icy, and I think or rather, this is hot stuff. And this may be what destroys the world. We just consume ourselves to death. But then he says, there's another possibility. I've seen a lot of hatred in the world, and if the world is destroyed a second time, I think just by hate, by pure nastiness, as people turn on each other, and maybe turn on other creatures, and just tear each other apart. So how does the world end? You tell me. Maybe it's extreme heat, climate change, whatever, and all the things that contribute to climate change. Or maybe it's, civil war, just pure badness, violence, endless violence and division. Maybe it's a bit of both. Maybe one leads to the other. Now, this is a remarkable congregation. We should have a spider's web that says "remarkable church," or some church. We all believe in the inner web of existence because we're Unitarian Universalists. So maybe we need to proclaim that. This is a remarkable congregation among the Unitarian Universalists because you continue 12 months out of the year. All right, you're always active. You're always helping each other. You're always coming forward on Sunday to be with each other, to share joys and concerns, to make necessary announcements, to hold the meetings, the discussions that need to happen. And you're doing that all the time. That does not happen in all congregations. And this may surprise some of you, that there are actually Unitarian Universalist churches that would close down during the summer. And they'd close down because they'd say, well, the heat is extreme, we don't want to hang around for this. And of course, they're missing the point. I talked to Lori about this a few minutes ago. Especially in Florida, this is the most difficult of seasons. I mean, think about it. Hurricane season starts June 1st, so it's coming up very fast. Continues to November 30th, but especially around August into early September, that's when things are really going to kick in. Now, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, it seems like an appropriate name, NOAA, says that last year, so we're talking the year 23, was certainly the hottest year for planet Earth in recorded history. And some scientists have said in several thousand years, each summer is hotter than the previous summer, and the sea keeps rising. And NOAA said, May 23rd, with FEMA, this is going to be an unusually active hurricane season. In fact, they even used the word extraordinary. Now, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, and maybe nothing will happen for Port Charlotte. Maybe the hurricanes will go over and hit Fort Lauderdale or some other place. Okay. But we know that we're moving into a difficult season. And some Unitarian Universalists are raising the point, the question, shouldn't we be doing something? Aren't we called to humanitarian work, to be advocates in the places and for the people where advocacy is really needed? Think about marginalized groups, homeless people, the very young, the very old. Think about LGBTQ plus people who are often abandoned or ignored during disasters. Even when federal funding's involved, they're sometimes just shoved aside. Think about racial minorities, people with disabilities, immigrants who've come into this country, whether documented or undocumented. If you don't speak English, you're going to have a very hard time in the emergency services system. I'm going to mention, I have a degree in public health, and I've been doing emergency services work for about 40 years. So I've seen a lot of disasters, north and south, and I've seen what happens and what doesn't happen. And I can tell you that there are times, and especially in the hot weather months, when advocacy, compassion, just caring for each other, these things are really important. Religious education, pastoral care, food assistance, transportation, all the basics. They're really going to be necessary. I think, as some of you are aware, I provide ministry to several UU churches, and my wife, Lynn, is involved. The Key West congregation is a congregation that I help. The highest place in Key West is 16 feet above water. That's the highest spot. Okay. It's very difficult to get in and out of Key West, as many of you know. And so it is at this time of year. They've made the request to other Unitarian Universalist congregations, keep us in mind. Keep yourselves in mind also, whether you're worried about forest fires, droughts, whatever. We're moving into a difficult season. We need each other. Stay on the side of love. Stay on the side of love. That's the message. You can read Charlotte's Web, or you can just look around in your own world. Stay on the side of love. Namaste. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much. I love the literary slant. Please rise and body your spirit. Sing number 207 in the Gray Hymnal. This is the same melody as Blue Boat Home, so just pay attention to the words, you know the rest. Ah, yes, it's time for the offering, yes. The offering that supports this fellowship and everything we value about it. Although if you're with us for the first time, please consider yourself our guest without giving. The ushers now come forward. life of the community. You all have on the back of your orders of service this week's layout of activities and meetings, groups, and I trust you can read. So I will let you do so. I don't have any particular announcements. I would just like to call attention to this beautiful new display on our walls. Thank you to the art folks for that. Closing words are from Annie Dillard, her first book, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. Those of you who love nature, if you don't know Annie Dillard, particularly Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, it's a kind of memoir of close observations of the natural world as she takes her walks. Beautifully written. And these are words from that book. We are here to witness the creation and to abet it. We are here to notice each thing, so each thing gets noticed. Together, we notice not only each mountain shadow and each stone on the beach, but especially we notice the beautiful faces and complex natures of each other. We are here to bring to consciousness the beauty and power that are around us, and to praise the people who are here with us. We witness our generation and our times. We watch the weather. Otherwise, creation would be playing to an empty house. Now, if you will please rise in body or spirit for our final hymn, number 1 in the gray hymnal, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
Few words about that song before Sharon comes back. It's an unusual, please be seated, unusual song. It's usually sung at building dedications, which is why you may not have heard it very often, building dedications. And of course, it's hymn number 1. Something to keep in mind, very appropriate for this season. Thank you.
It's a good song, thank you. It's time to extinguish our chalice. Who's going to do that today? I thought it was going to be Corey. Dorothy, would you do that, please? So that we close the service, let us join together in speaking the ritual words, and then you can turn your cell phones back on. What are the ritual words? We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, and the warmth of community. May these ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. May it be so. Go in peace. Thank you, Reverend Bob.